Look, we turning conversation into application. This ain't for you if you can't handle deep communication. I see too many trying to teach when they need all the teaching. If you can't practice what you preach, then what's the point of speaking? Look, we thank the Lord for another season. Don't think they ready for you, Lee. I think them boys are sleeping. But we gon' hustle every hour like it's our last. Open up your mind, it's the converSAYtion podcast. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the converSAYtion podcast, where we turn conversation into application. I am your host, Leon Reed Jones, and we're back with yet another episode for this season. This episode is very, very important to me. I told my best friend before I got here what I was going to be dealing with today and what I was going to be talking about. She was like, wow, that's deep. That's crazy. And part of this is formed by my experiences and a song actually that I hold near and dear to me, which I'll get to as we go on through the podcast. But today's topic is about cycles, right? I've been on this conversation with myself, my mentees, and there has been this constant reminder about how important cycles are and how much they matter. And recently, I've had the time to sit with myself regarding cycles and what they mean to me, how they've impacted and influenced me. And so for me, there is always this push, or more recently, there has always been this push for constant improvement, constant growth, being consistent in all things in an effective way, in a positive way. Right, that's going to help me be the best version of myself. And as we all know, a lot of times we're not perfect, but I'm so much of I don't want to even say a perfectionist, because I don't honestly think I'm a perfectionist, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like I'm more so of a person where I don't want to wait on someone else or something else to do the right thing, if that makes sense. Like, I'm always a person where it's like, if I know what's right, if I know what I should be doing, the direction I should be heading in, I don't want to sit here and blame it on me, living in a world of sin. I don't want to blame it on me being human. I don't want to blame it on me being imperfect, because I feel like a lot of times you can get lost in that and make it your crutch, right? Like, oh, well, I didn't grow up with this, so it's okay for me to do this. Or I'm a sinner anyway, so it's okay for me to do that, right? All of those things may be true. You may not have a father figure. You may be living in certain circumstances. You may struggle with something. We live in a sinful world, but at the end of the day, that doesn't hinder any of us from getting better, from growing, from stopping the things that we want to do less of and starting the things we want to do more of. And so there has been this constant, thought, this constant conversation that I've had with myself about cycles and how much they matter and how do I want to be remembered. I was just telling somebody, like, there was a situation where I was working this summer camp, and this guy, he approached me, not physically, but through text. I was like, yo, somebody told me to come to you about us getting paid. And so from my conversation with my mentor and other people that I knew a part of this program, we had already fixed the situation. So I was telling the guy, like, I've already spoken to these people. I've already spoken to management. And, from my understanding, I thought that you already got paid based on what you worked. And he was like, yo, so you gonna play around too. So you gonna try to play me too. And then in that moment, I thought about, like, how do I want to be remembered? Like, what type of reputation, what type of background do I want to have? Because, the way the guy, talked to me, it didn't bother me, but I had every right to, give him the same energy that he was giving me. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the whole conversation of cycles. Like, what cycle do I want to create? Do I want to constantly be a part of the cycle where I'm going back and forth with somebody? Do I want to constantly add to the cycle of something ending in violence or getting physical? Do I want to add to the cycle of, me being remembered as a person that didn't do his due diligence, right? So in that moment, I'm like, nah, I want to be remembered for somebody who took care of business, who went about things the right way. Because again, all too well, we take opportunities, we take times like, oh, well, I ain't perfect. I'm not going to let nobody talk to me crazy. Instead of stepping back and saying, yo, I've done this before. I've went off on a person before because of how they've treated me. I've went off on a person before because what they said to me. But do I want that to be the continuous cycle? Do I want that to be the constant, or do I want to do something different? And if so, how can I work on those things? And so it's always me replaying in my head, like, how can I do better? How can I become better? How can I not repeat the cycles that I'm not necessarily ashamed of, but I don't want to do anymore, right? Because at the end of the day, if anything else, I want to be remembered as a great person, a good person, someone who treated people with respect, not a person that was perfect, but a person who did everything in his power to make things right, a person who did everything in his power to get better every day in whatever area that was, to do more of the things that would help me versus doing more of the things that would hinder me. So I have this song that is in a way connected to today's topic, and crazy enough, the song is called Cycles. And for anybody who knows me, this song is by Jonathan McReynolds. He's my favorite gospel artist, probably, one of my favorite artists in general, regardless. But there's a quote during this song, and it says, "See, the devil, he learns from your mistakes, even if you don't, and that's how he keeps you in cycles." So when I replay this portion of the song in my head, right, I think about how not only does God know the different cycles that can help us and that can harm us, the devil does as well. He knows that you may continue a cycle of being promiscuous, or you may have a cycle of being addicted to certain things. And for me, I feel like I'm very self-aware of the decisions that I make and what could potentially come with them. And so for me, as I said earlier, I don't wait on, I'm getting to the point where I'm not waiting on somebody else to do the right thing for me to step up. I'm not waiting on, well, they know what's right too. They should be the one to call it out before me, because I can't control what other people say. I can't control what other people do, but I am in control of my actions. So for me to kind of connect this to the lyrics in the song called Cycles by Jonathan McReynolds, if I want to do better, I have to do some things that's going to remove me from the cycles that have me bound. That's just the bottom line. That's black and white, very much black and white. But the process to doing that is always easier said than done. But I've come to a place in my life where whatever it takes for me to do better and be better and continue to be the best version of myself, I'm willing to do it. I'm more so of a person, like, when I had that conversation with God, like, hey, this is what you want me to do? Like, okay, you want me to go here? You want me to say this? You want me to do this? Cool. I just need to know. I need the signs. I need the confirmation, and then I'm going. It's not I don't know, God, I don't want to do that. I'm straight on that. I'm cool on that. I just need the signs. I just need the information, the where, the what, and the how. And I can be very transparent about me when it comes to cycles. I've, had some habits that I'm not proud of. I've had some, moments that I'm not proud of. I talked about in another episode where I struggled with my approach to different things, meaning like if something doesn't go my way, lately I've been going back to this childish mentality of like, I'm going to separate myself from them. I'm not going to necessarily be mad at you. It's not going to look aggressive. It's not going to be aggressive, but I'm going to just, maybe I don't talk to you anymore. maybe on a good day, I may unfollow you, or maybe I just have little to say to you anymore because the things that I thought should have played out didn't play out the way that I wanted to. Or like, oh, they got until today to hit me back. Or if I call them today and they don't pick up, then I know for a fact I'm done with them. Instead of saying, yo, people got things going on. And even if people have absolutely nothing going on, even if people aren't working, even if people aren't busy and they just don't want to talk, or even if they feel like, I don't really have the time for Leon, like, that's okay, bro. Like, but these habits have developed these cycles, these toxic cycles, these negative cycles, to where I don't always handle things the best, right? My approach, or like me being a Christian, right? A lot of times, and it's funny that people say, oh man, Christian guys are the worst ones, or Christians are the, worst people. And I don't necessarily take that as offense, but I'm a person that takes pride in whatever I do. So it's like, to hear that, yeah, we can laugh about it and it's funny, but part of me is like, yo, I don't want to be on that side of the cycle, right? Where you run into a Christian and this is their opinion of you, or this is their takeaway from you, like, oh, all Christians are this. I want to be on the side where it's like, yo, he embodies what a Christian is. No, he's not perfect. He's far from it, but he embodies exactly what he talks about. He embodies the very thing that he's living. Even with him being in a sinful world, with him, not being perfect. That's the side of the cycle that I want to be on. So, and wanting to be on that side and wanting to have the positive reactions or the comments about me, I got to get some work done, right? I talked about how I, for the most part, know what's right and what's wrong. I know when I make a decision why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think recently I've had situations where it's like, dang, you make a decision in the moment and you like, it's cool. And part of me, again, this goes back to the transparency and the toxic cycles that have developed in my own life. Like, I'll make a decision basically like involving me and another person, or I'll do something that I know for sure it's probably not the best decision, bro. You probably shouldn't have said that. You probably shouldn't have done that. But it's like, oh, well, they don't care, or they okay with it. They know what's right. They know what's wrong, or I'm assuming they know what's right and what's wrong. They don't have a problem. They're not complaining about it. So my haste in a way is not really, I'm not really as quick to be like, oh, let me stop doing this. Let me stop saying this. Let me stop going here. Because it's like, oh, if they ain't tripping, if nothing really bad is happening, I don't need to stop. And it's crazy because that's not who I want to be. That's not what I feel I represent 9 times out of 10. But because of some choices that I've decided to make in the moment, because of some things that I've done, this is the habit that is formed, right? You don't really care too much, not about the other person per se, but about your decisions in the moment. Because like, oh, I mean, it's no big deal. They don't really care, or I'm not really getting any dire consequences or any consequences that would make me say, nah, I'm cool. But I'm also a person who is like, dang, you a mentor. You a behavior specialist. You help out at church. You have a significant role with the youth at church. But even if I had none of those things, I care about the life that I live and the impact that I want to have on society and those people that I come into contact with. And that's not a negative one. I don't desire to have a negative impact or encounter with people. I want people to interact with me or come across me and say, hey, man, he helped as many people as he could. He stood for something valuable that's going to last even after he's long gone. But what stops me a lot of times is the decisions, the bad cycles, the part of the cycle that I don't really like, that's ugly, that's, terrible, that's not getting me to where I want to go. And I'm very self-aware about the things that I say, the things that I do, even if they're wrong. But I think I was telling my friend the other day, like, we all have an encounter with the things that we're doing. And God at some point shows us and convicts us of those things. And for me, recently, I had a conversation with my best friend, just telling her, like, there was some things starting off when I first went off to college, about, like, I prayed, but I wasn't intentional, if that makes sense. Like, God, help me to pass my classes, or show me what it is that you will have for me. That's very, in a way, like, God knows what we need at the end of the day. He knows what comes with everything. But it was, like, very vague. And it wasn't until I graduated college to where I started being more intentional about, hey, God, if you want me to do this thing that is currently arising in my life, then let this happen, or do this, or show me how this would play out, versus my freshman year, my sophomore year, my junior year, and even part of my senior year. It was just like, God, whatever you want for me, just do it, or help me to get a job. It was just that cut and dry. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but I've come to understand, like, I got to be intentional in all that I do. I have to be more specific in the things that I do, because there's a specific place that God wants to take me. There's a specific space that he wants me around. There's specific people or individuals that he wants me around. So after he shows me, after he teaches me what I need to do, then I got to be more specific on my end and say, how do you want me to do this? How do you want me to say this? What type of people do you want me to be around? And for a very long time, I didn't do that. I was, like, just doing things just to, I wouldn't say doing them just to do them, but it was like, it was easy for me to just get up and pray for the same few things that I would pray for. Make sure I'm safe, make sure I make it to class on time, make sure I make it to work on time, make sure this happens, bless me physically, mentally, financially, spiritually. But, like, what does that look like for me? Because I could say that, and that could not only be for me, but it could be for my friends, it could be for my family. But for all of us, that looks very different. The way God wants to bless me financially may look different than how he wants to bless my older brother. The way that God wants to help me mentally may be different than he wants to help my friend. So I had to learn how to do things in a way where it was very specific. But again, these cycles, these habits that I'm developing that are pushing me farther away from God and pushing me farther away from the plan that I'm trying to figure out that he has for me. But here comes the pressure of, do I go back home and work? Right? I got a degree now. I can go anywhere I want to. Or do I stay down south? Do I go to Nashville? Do I go to Atlanta? Do I do this? Do I do that? And all of this is playing through my head when I'm in the process of graduating in 2021. I'm not really thinking about that freshman year. I'm thinking about, I need to do everything that I can to graduate. Sophomore year, same deal. I need to do everything I can to graduate. Meeting friends, networking with people, but I'm not really taking the time to talk to my advisors when it comes to careers. I'm not really taking the time to sit with people that have been where I'm trying to go and say, hey, what did you do when you were in your sophomore year? What did you do when this happened? What did you say when this happened? I'm not taking the time to do the things that I know I should be doing and the things that I actually enjoy. Like, I actually enjoy getting game from people that have been where I'm trying to go. I actually enjoy learning and being a sponge, but I'm learning, I'm doing my schoolwork, I'm turning in papers, I'm on time for class, but I'm not really taking specific and intentional time learning what I need to do. So when my senior year gets here and I graduate, and before I graduate, I have a job secured back home. I come home and I'm working as a sports performance coach because I went to school. For those who don't know, I went to school and graduated with a degree in fitness and wellness. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm about to be a coach. And I will always be grateful for my starting job at May Student Athletics, for sure. And shout out to Coach Lou, my guy, who's like a big brother to me. But part of me now, when I look back on it, I'm not saying that wasn't the path that I was supposed to take, but part of me is like, dang, if you would have did a little bit more, if you would have developed some habits, some practices, and really been intentional about going to your advisors or going to people in your same career field and saying, hey, I need to do this. How can you help me? Or finding out through prayer, through conversation with God, like, what is it that you want me to do next, versus saying, oh, this is what I think I should be doing. This looks cool. This is back home. Let me just go ahead and do this, and then God gonna figure out the rest. Versus consulting God and saying, hey, is this the place you want me to go? Do you want me to go back to Detroit? Do you want me to stay here in Huntsville? Do you want me to venture off to somewhere else? Is there another opportunity? And so now with me learning from that, and that was the key point for me, making sure that moving forward, I'm more intentional, because again, I was just kind of in a way lackluster. Like, I'm here, I'm in college, I'm doing the checkpoints. I'm going to class, check. I'm on time for class. I'm turning in my assignments on time, check. I'm going to sleep on time, check. But I'm not really spending intentional time learning about what I need to do. So by the time I graduate, I'm set as far as a career. I'm set as far as the beginning of a new chapter that God is trying to take me through or to. So for a while, I didn't really recognize it. I didn't really sit with myself and say, hey, man, you got to do more of this. I promise you, I kid you not. It wasn't until probably a few months ago to where I really sat with myself and I had a conversation with somebody who's like a aunt or a mom to me. And I was like, I just realized that for so long, I was going through these motions and this cycle of just not really being intentional. I was going through these cycles of not really sitting with God and asking him the questions that I needed to ask him. I really didn't take the time to be specific about what I needed to do on my end so that I could be obedient to God. It wasn't until recently where I started praying like, God, if you want this thing to happen, if you want this career choice to happen, then make a way for that. Show me, like, make it as elementary as possible so I don't miss what you have for me. If you want me to go down here and have this conversation with this person, then show me what to say. If you want to send somebody to help me before I go have this conversation, let it be known before I go down here. If I don't need to go down here at all, let it be known. But before, it was the cycle, it was the habits of, I'm just here. Everything's going to work itself out. I just got to do this, and then God going to do this. Versus saying, yo, I know God is going to do his part every day, all day, no problem. But what is it, God, that you specifically want me to do, and how do you want me to do it? But again, the cycles. And I told my mentees recently there is 2 types of cycles. It's good and it's bad. Anything in this life, anything in the world can either be used for good or it can be used for bad. And something that I realized even in my own personal walk, in my own personal journey, that anything before me, that has nothing to do with me. So before I was born and my brother was here, even before my brother was born, and it was just my mom and my dad, those cycles that they have, those habits that they have, that has nothing to do with me. It can be passed down, right? You hear a lot of times, well, that's all kids know because that's all they've been shown. I know for a fact, as a kid, I've only been shown positivity. Now, there's been some times where any parent does this, has to discipline their kids. There's been times where I've seen things from my parents like, I wouldn't approach things like that with my child the way my mom did that. I wouldn't approach things like that the way my dad did that. Or it's something I can see them doing from afar, like, I probably wouldn't do that. Or let me not do that because I see what it got them, right? I see what not doing this, what position it put them in. So going back to the point of a lot of times people just take on habits and cycles because, oh, my dad was a drug dealer, so I got to do this. My dad played basketball, so I got to do this. My mom did this, so I got to do this. Well, my family doesn't believe in college. All the different cycles you can think of, or the different things that have been passed down that could put us in a bad spot. That's one side of the cycle. Another side is the good parts. Some can be passed down, but also another part of a cycle is the ones that you create. You have nothing to do with the cycles before you. You weren't born. You didn't have any control over that. But everything from you moving forward, you have the power to shape and mold and create. There are some cycles that, quite frankly, some of us are not proud of, that we've either inherited or we've developed over time, right? But we have to make it our business to say, yo, anything that happened before me has nothing to do with me. It may try to rise up in me, or when I have kids, those cycles may try to be passed down. But everything from me going forward, I have the power, I have the control to change. So if you don't like the fact that nobody in my family has a college degree, you have the power to change that and create a new cycle that's positive. You have the power to say, hey, all my family work 9 to 5s. I want to be my own boss. I want to be an entrepreneur. You have the power to create that new cycle. But you also have the power to inherit the different cycles, good or bad. You can allow the toxicity from your family, from your mom, your dad, your environment, and you can adopt it, and you can say, hey, we're going to keep this cycle going of toxic behavior, being around the wrong crowd, being around people that mean me no good, doing things that is going to push me farther away from being my best self. Or you can say, hey, I know I was raised, as my dad would say, from good stock. You come from good stock, meaning that you come from a background, you come from a place, you come from a village that isn't perfect. We don't have all the answers, but we did what we could with what we had to make you into the person that you are today, so that you can take what you have and that has allowed you to get up to this point, you can expand it, you can have your own experiences. You bring more lessons to the table, and you teach those that come after you, whether a part of your bloodline or people that you come into contact with. We have the power to say and do these different cycles, good or bad. I can say, yo, my dad struggled financially. What he did has nothing to do with me, but I can inherit that and say, I'm going to keep inheriting the same cycle. Those bad financial choices or decisions, I could continue to walk in that, or I could say, yo, let me take a step back and see where he went wrong. What decisions did he make that caused him to get there. Let me dissect them. Let me learn from them and say, this is what I'm going to do from here on out. This is what I'm going to help my kids with. These are the choices and the lessons that I'm going to pass on to people that I come in contact, so they don't make the same mistakes that my pops did, or this person did, or your brother, or your mother, or your grandmother. Which side of the cycle do you want to be on? And I ask my mentees this, like, because the thing I love about life is, like, life allows you to make the choices that you want. But whether a good choice or a bad choice, it has a consequence. So you have to make a conscious decision every single day to say, hey, I want to be on this side of the coin. I want to be on this side of the cycle. I want to inherit the good parts. I want to inherit the parts that help me grow as a person. I want to create some cycles that help me physically, mentally, financially, spiritually. I want to do away with the cycles that kept us bound. I want to do away with the cycles that were negative. I want to do away with the cycles that remove me from being my best self, remove me from being all God has created me to be. I want to remove those cycles, but whatever side of the cycle that you want to be on, good or bad, work has to be done. And I'm constantly reminded of how each and every day you got to die to self daily. What that means is you move out of the way so God can have his way, right? Because a lot of times we in our flesh, meaning like we make decisions that they sound good, but the aftermath is not going to be good. And something I learned from my boy Ryan, and I tell this story a lot to people. It was a few weeks before we were about to graduate from Oakwood, and he was like, bro, you know what's so funny, like what's so crazy? A lot of people, they do what's called a checklist, right? And in this case, he was talking about Adventists, which is a religious group, for those who don't know. He was like, oh, I'm going to church on Saturday, check. I'm a part of Pathfinders, check. I'm in a choir, check. I'm doing this, check. All these checkpoints, all these things that we can cross off our list that we've got done. But he said, isn't it so crazy that a lot of times we could do things that we think in our head make us the greats, or I'm doing the right thing because of what it looks like, or what we've been told. But we could be making decisions that God told us never to do, and then end up creating cycles not only for ourselves, but the people that come after us. And what I hold near and dear to me is understanding that my decisions don't just impact me. If I go out right now and rob a bank, it doesn't just impact me. I lose my job. Now the kids don't have a behavioral specialist. I go to jail. Now my mentees don't have a mentor. I go to jail. I can't see my family. They can't see me. But if I continue in these ways and these habits because I'm not perfect, or because I don't have this, instead of saying, yo, yeah, I'm not perfect. Yeah, I struggle with this. But how can I turn my struggle into a learning moment? How can I turn this trial into a testimony saying, yeah, I did struggle with this, but I didn't let it define me. I chose to rise above and say, hey, I don't like the habits that I'm forming. I don't like these cycles that I'm developing, so I'm going to do something about it. A lot of times we got to get out of our own way and let God have his way in our lives so we can develop the cycles that he wants us to have. Because what we think a lot of times is the right thing, or what God wants, is really what we want. And God knows what comes with everything. He knows what comes with you saying yes to this girl. He knows what comes with the car ride with your friend. He also knows what comes with you saying, nah, I'm going to go to study hall instead of hoop. He also knows what comes with saying no to the party. He also knows what comes with, oh man, I'm going to do this. Because either way, different cycles, good or bad, can be developed from these decisions that we make and these choices that we choose to make. And for me, I've been in a place where I'm like, I gotta be super intentional every day because of the fact that I'm human, because of the fact that I live in a sinful world, and God, as well as the devil, knows what I like. Right? A lot of times people don't like being honest about sin. Like, yo, sin is fun. Like, being around certain environments, being around certain things that we crave, that we enjoy, that is wrong, is fun because it's something that gives us a certain type of feeling, certain type of urge, like all these different things that a lot of people would tell you, like, oh, yeah, that's wrong. True. But the other part we don't talk about is like a lot of these desires that we have, like, we have these for a reason because we're attracted to these things. We want to be around these things. Even though they're wrong, we like the feeling it gives us, whether it's a woman, a blunt, or in certain environments that we around. It gives us a certain feeling that makes us in the moment feel good. But I'm so key on, like, nah, I'm not gonna allow me being a person that's not perfect as a crutch. Like, no, let's deal with the issue so this cycle doesn't continue. Let's deal with the issue of how you don't really like the fact that you don't hear from certain people as much as you used to. Let's deal with the fact that, yo, I'm reaching out to this person, but no, I'm gonna tell myself it ain't no big deal that they ain't responded. It ain't no big deal that I ain't heard from them. But in reality, you irritated. You don't like the fact that you reaching out and you ain't getting no response. You don't like the fact that you calling more than they are. You don't like the fact that you doing certain things and you're not getting the results that you want. So you first, we got to be honest with ourselves about when it comes to our cycles, whether good or bad. They tell you to always be honest, always be upfront about your situation, because that's the first way for you to be successful in whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're struggling with. So for me, I've been very honest and intentional about things that I may be like, nah, that ain't no big deal. I don't really care about it. I don't really feel the way. Now I'm saying, no, I do have a problem with this. This doesn't make me crazy. This doesn't make me indifferent. But I need to find out what I need to do so this cycle of maybe getting upset with a person, maybe cutting into a person because something didn't go my way, or because things didn't happen the way that I felt that they should, or the way a person said they would. How can I change this cycle from being toxic in my approach versus being positive and saying, you know what? I know what comes with this person. I know what comes with this situation. So instead of going through the same old cycle, let me form some different habits. Let me put up some different boundaries so I don't keep making these same choices when I know what's right, when I know that I probably shouldn't be around this person anymore, when I know that this is the extent of our relationship, when I know this environment isn't good, versus like, why this ain't working, why this not happening. And I end up making the same choices over and over again versus creating a cycle, creating habits that will help me in the long run. Say, you know what? So I don't make this same choice. Let me understand that, hey, this person is not my friend, but maybe they're my associate. I don't need to be around these people unless I'm at work. I don't need to be around this environment anymore because it's not really conducive to where I'm trying to go. And that is all a part of being honest with yourself when you're trying to create better cycles, when you're trying to remove the bad cycles. Something that I've started to do is like, yo, this not really conducive to my life. It was a sermon about maybe a few months ago where my pastor talked about the race, right? A lot of times, he said what younger people do, he said what people tend to do that are younger, they tend to say like, how much is, I forget the phrase that he used, basically saying, how much is too far. Like, oh, don't go too far. And my age group and younger is like, he says, most people are like, your age group, how much is too far? Meaning like, how far can I go before it's too much? Because again, it's perspective. Everybody has different views on how much is too far. Oh, that wasn't that serious. And another person can say, well, no, that was kind of crazy. So I've been adamant about understanding, like, how far are you away from your purpose? How far away are you from God? Is this decision, are these cycles pushing you toward your purpose or pushing you away from it? And when I get the answer to that, that helps me make a better decision. Like, oh, this pushing me further away? We got to work on not doing that. Oh, this is pushing me towards God. We got to create a cycle that's consistent, that helps me move closer and closer. Because right now, I'm making choices that is pushing me further away. I'm doing things like having a bad way to my approach. I'm doing things like not really reading the Bible, not really taking quality and intentional time. And these things, these choices, these cycles that are happening over and over again, day in, day out, I'm not seeing any progress. I'm regressing, and I'm getting farther away from where God wants me to go. So now that I see that, let's create some cycles that keep me closer to God, like reading the Bible, praying with intention and being specific, saying, okay, after a certain time, I'm not going to be on my phone. Because if I'm on my phone at a certain time, maybe this happens. Or maybe I call this person and I shouldn't be on the phone with them late at night because I can end up going to their house and doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. Or at this point in the day, I'm going to take out the Bible and I'm going to read it for 30 minutes or an hour or however long. At this point of the week, I'm going to the gym and I'm doing this versus talking about I'm going to the gym, because talking, it becomes a cycle of I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym. And the weekend is here and I haven't even done 3 days out of the week of me going to the gym. Or I can be on the other side of the cycle and say, hey, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, mark it in the calendar, write it in your notebook, make an alarm. These constant habits, these constant cycles that help me get farther along in my goal and whatever I want to succeed in, whatever is pushing me closer to my purpose. So you got to be honest, but you also have to put boundaries and situations in place that help you remove the toxic cycles, that help you constantly create the positive cycles. And something that I feel that has helped me in doing this is being honest and also being accountable. I always say America's worst problem is accountability. Taking, control and being accountable for the things that you say and you do. I can stand on 10 toes and say, hey, I said this because of this. And I can get backlash. I'm okay with that. I can have people say, well, I ain't rocking with you no more. I'm mad at you right now. Because I'm accountable over the things that I say and I do. 9 times out of 10. There's been some times where I haven't been, or I've waited to be accountable. But not just being honest, but also being accountable. That's how these are the first 2 steps that help you into creating better cycles and removing negative cycles. And something that consistency is everything at the end of the day. And that's something that I always pray for. Consistency in an effective and positive way, because it's not enough to be consistent. Because there's people consistently begging right now. There's people consistently doing things that they shouldn't be doing. It's people that's consistently doing stuff that's not getting them where they want to be. So it's not enough to be consistent. I got to be consistent in a way that is helping my purpose. I got to be consistent in a way that's allowing me to develop the habits and the cycles that help me to go forward instead of backwards. And something else that I've been able to also do and take the time to is talk to older people. I love actually talking to older people who have been where I've been, who have the wisdom, the guidance, and the counsel. But I'm not saying just grab a random older person and have a conversation with them. But some people that I hold in high regard, like my Auntie Linda, or Mr. Standiford, or a guy like Sandra, or my pops, or even sometimes my older brother. Like these are people that I have conversations with about different things, because something I've learned when it comes to counsel and advice and wisdom, you have to be very specific and particular about who you go to about what. So, for instance, when I need anything done or advice on cars, I'm calling my brother, because my brother knows a ton about cars, super knowledgeable when it comes to that. When I need any spiritual guidance, I call up Sandra. I call up my Auntie Vernisha. I call up Mr. Standiford. I call up my pops. I talk to different people, my homeboy Ryan, because they're, experts, or they're great in what they do when it comes to spiritual guidance and advice and counsel. When I want to talk about how to get better at, my workout plan, I hit up my guy Lou, right? Even though I went to school for that, he's been in the game longer than me. So when I have advice, when I need advice or counsel on that, I go to him about it. I have different people for different things that are gonna all play a part into helping me become better and developing the cycles that's going to help me be the best version of myself. So, number one, being honest about your situation, being honest and saying like, yo, this is my current cycle, whether it's good or bad. How do I continue this? I'm consistent. I'm accountable. I talk to some older people who have been where I'm trying to go, who have the wisdom that I don't have and that I long for. And I'm also very specific in who I talk to about what. So if I need help with studying, I go to those people who do great at studying, and who have developed some habits that have helped them be great in that area. If I want to talk about sports, I go to my coach. I go to the person who's great in that area that will help me develop great habits in that area, and so forth and so on. All of these different things help you in determining what side of the cycle that you want to be on. You have to make a daily decision to say, hey, this is my cycle, good or bad. Because we all got cycles on both sides of the coin, whether that's good or bad. But you got to make a daily decision to constantly say, I don't want this cycle anymore. This is deterring me from my path. On the other hand, this cycle is pushing me closer to where I want to go. So how do I get better in that regard? What do I do? What do I say? What am I around? And then you also have to remember that anything before you has nothing to do with you, but everything from you going forward, you have the power to control. You have the wherewithal to decide, these are the cycles that I'm going to inherit that are positive. These are the cycles that I'm going to take time to remove, because my dad didn't take time to do this. My mom didn't take time to deal with the cycles that now has her addicted to drugs. My dad didn't deal with the cycles that have him not being able to have a relationship with his kids. Or my aunt had this cycle that she didn't deal with because she ran into something. She ran into a bump in the road and she really didn't know how to handle it. Now you have the power after them, and when you're born and when your kids are born, to say, hey, these are the cycles that I'm going to create. These are the cycles that I'm going to inherit. But I'm going to take time each and every day. I'm going to remove myself and let God have his way and show me how he wants me to go about developing these cycles so that not only I can be better, but I can create a generation of people, not just from my bloodline, but from people that I come across that can develop positive habits as well as cycles so that we can all be the best version of ourselves. But y'all know I can't leave without doing this the right way. I got to end with a quote. And the quote says this: you can pick up a mistake and carry it as a burden, or you can set it down and use it as stepping stones to walk into greatness. There are some habits, there are some cycles that may have us bound, quite frankly. There's some mistakes that have been formed into habits that we can either choose to make burdens of, or we can use these same mistakes, sit them down and learn from them, and allow them to be the stepping stones to create and have better cycles. Y'all know what it is, man. Thank y'all for tuning in to the converSAYtion podcast. I'll see y'all same time, same place, and y'all know the motto. It's all love.